So the agenda for today is going to be that we're going to understand that how last mile logistics works in India and how they are dependent primarily on three-wheelers and two-wheelers. A lot of the models that we see outside of are from outside of India, primarily the US market. But India markets, the value chains are very different. So we're going to see the Indian value chain of different in different use cases and how they are dependent mostly on three-wheelers and two-wheelers. Uh, we are also going to look at the total cost of ownership for petrol bikes and electric bikes. I've not done it for three-wheelers because some of them are still waiting for approvals and the cost of registration, etc., are still not very clear. So that is why I've not done that comparison. But for two-wheelers, we have done that comparison. Then we'll talk about the leasing business. Everybody is not talking about leasing. Shared mobility, etc., have come in. So we'll also talk about how leasing business works in the current value chain. Then obviously we are going to have an interactive session, a Q&A session for 15 minutes. So without further ado, we'll go and understand how the value chain and how the supply chain looks in different scenarios. So this guys over here is a typical distribution network in retail. Now retail is one of the oldest industries, and India obviously it is primarily run. The interaction of the customer is primarily with the retailer, right? And we all know that the traditional retail business has actually further strengthened their position in Indian market, especially after COVID, after the lockdown. Now, if you look at the value chain of the retail, which is obviously the largest industry, the goods start from the factory. They go to the local warehouse of the city-based warehouse of the manufacturer. Then it goes to the distributor. Now, these distributors have a very strong community. They have a very strong. So will have a distributor in a city, and they will be the only distributor in a certain area for a particular brand. And then from the distributor, it goes to the retailer. Sometimes it can be depending on the product. It can be a one-ton vehicle, the Tata Ace. But in most cases, it is actually a three-wheeled cargo vehicle with typical load capacities between 200 to 400 kgs. And here I'm talking mostly about the FMCG goods because they still form a very large part of the retail business. Then when it goes to the retailer, now from the retailer, the home deliveries has started a lot. Initially, customer used to go to the retailer and buy their stuff, but especially after COVID, retailers, all of the retailers all over India have started doing home delivery services. So this last mile delivery happens on a two-wheeler. Sometimes it's cycle, sometimes it could be a motorcycle or a scooter. Because the order values are very less, the load capacities are not much. I mean, what kgs of groceries does somebody order at a given time, right? So if we see at the last mile logistics, we see three-wheeler and two-wheelers being used in typical retail business. Then we talk about e-commerce. Now, obviously, e-commerce is the largest growing industry started by Flipkart, and it has further expanded with Amazon. And we have seen it in many different formats. We have seen it in grocery delivery. We have seen it in daily needs delivery aspects. In this, the scenario changes a little bit from the manufacturer warehouse to the retailer warehouse. And this e-retailer warehouse would generally be run by Amazon. The Amazon calls the fulfillment center, and similarly Flipkart's warehouse. Then from there, it goes typically on three-wheeler. Again, it could be bigger vehicle, but a lot of times they are on a three-wheeler. Typical loads being about 500 to 600 kgs. Then it goes to the local delivery center. Now, local delivery centers are generally run by third-party logistics company. They're 3PL companies. So these local delivery centers, they are run by third-party logistics company, and they're generally outsourced. So there might be bigger third-party logistics company, but then again, let's say we take an area. I'm from Delhi, so I live in Vasant Kunj in Delhi. So Vasant Kunj will have Amazon will have one local delivery center, maybe two, depending upon the population and the size. And these local delivery center would be operated by a third party. Now, this third party is supposed to do the last mile logistics, take the orders, and deliver it to the consumer, right? So, depending upon again the load size, how they are planning their day's deliveries, it could be either on a two-wheeler or a three-wheeler. Because again, then the things have to they have to get into smaller colonies and narrow lanes. So it is generally done on two wheelers and three wheelers. Mostly two wheelers, but in certain cases, if they have larger loads, they'll use a three wheeler. So again, we see that in this typical scenario, we can easily replace the current fossil fuel vehicles with the EV alternatives. Now, if you wonder, the reason for that is another one, just not because of the reduced cost. One of the major reasons why people say that electric vehicles are not feasible is because of the range anxiety. In this case, when the local delivery center and the distance between the consumer is not large, the range anxiety is not a huge issue. People say that swapping centers can be there, but the problem with swapping again is that you need a certain volume. But when the vehicles operate between a local delivery center to consumer, even if it's a larger area, the vehicle still comes back, the rider still comes back to the local delivery center. And the company can set up their own infrastructure for battery swapping or charging, and so that the range anxiety is not there, right? So again, that is another reason why EVs can easily replace this last mile logistics. Typically because they have a certain hub which they come back to, right? And we'll see this in all the cases, even in retailer, right? Now, this retailer, the distances, total distances per trip would actually be lower in this scenario. Uh, and then again, after they have done the deliveries, mostly in the morning or in the evening, after they've done the deliveries in the morning, they can charge. The retailer can charge at their shop for there. Then one of the biggest growing businesses is food delivery. At Earthride, we started with catering to food delivery companies such as Swiggy and Zomato. And over here, if you see, everybody knows this, that the consumer places the food order on the food delivery app. The order then is passed to the restaurant, and the only physical delivery which happens is from the restaurant to consumer. These typically happen on two wheelers or cycles as well. So cycles, generally the delivery radius is between not more than 5 kilometers, and for petrol vehicles it can be more. Sometimes it's also up to 10 kilometers. Again, in this particular scenario, electric vehicles make a lot of sense, and we will see it in the next slide that these vehicles, whether we see it in the retail, right? In the retail, it will either be owned by retailer or, in fact, many times the delivery boy brings their own vehicle. Again, in e-commerce company, as we said, the third-party logistics company, they take the order from the e-commerce company, such as Amazon, and they get paid per delivery, and they then hire people, but the people have to bring in their own vehicle for the last mile delivery. Same is the case over here. No delivery companies own their own fleet. They might buy a few for experimentation and all, but so far the person has to bring their own vehicle. There are a lot of people who are doing about 20% of the delivery workforce is actually on cycles. Now, the last mile delivery, we'll talk about the Kirana stores now. We have all seen that the unorganized retail, which operate through Kirana stores and mop and pop stores, It is 10 times as big as the organized retail. And the organized retail, I'm including just not the e-commerce, but I'm also including companies like Big Bazaar and Spencer's. So if you look at the overall size, the organized retail is still 10 times than the organized retail. However, the good point is that the local Kirana stores, they are being formalized. Swiggy has launched their own local delivery service called Swiggy Genie. So they're just not delivering food. They also take you can place order for your eggs and milk and your daily groceries on Swiggy app, and the same Swiggy delivery person who delivers your food will pick up the order from a local Kirana store and deliver it to you. GeoMart is coming up with a similar model, and Dunzo and Zomato are also moving into this business of local deliveries from the Kirana stores. So what COVID has done is the lockdown has done is it has established the presence of Kirana stores and their place in the entire ecosystem. But since the orders have increased, it is getting formalized. So what was run on phones or where people deliver Kirana stores were saying that we will not provide the delivery, they have seen the need of providing delivery. And now technology is coming in and organized companies are coming in and keeping those Kirana stores in the ecosystem. They are doing the last mile deliveries. So, which is a good thing for the entire ecosystem because then you have to deal with just one entity who is the technology provider or the logistics company, and they take care of the rest of the relationships, right? And if you look at it, the and again, I'm using the example of e-commerce company, but this is how the other things will also work. In the case of last mile delivery for Kirana stores, this 3PL company will become the Kirana stores. This would be something like a GeoMart or Swiggy. Uh, so over here, but the ownership of the vehicle and how they operate remains primarily the same. The e-commerce company, now be it Amazon or Flipkart or GeoMart or Swiggy or Zomato, they provide the platform, the technology, they do the marketing, and they get the orders. Right? They are the ones who are doing the marketing. They are the ones who are getting the orders in. The 3PL, then the order is then they passed on to the 3PL company. Now, this is the company which is managing. They just get the orders pushed to them. They don't have to worry about getting the orders. They don't have to worry about sales. All they need to be do is run the operations efficiently. The promise of all the companies is timely delivery. So the promise of the 3PL companies is that they do timely deliveries. So they have to hire the workforce. They have to make sure that the workforce is available, and they have to make sure that the workforce comes with their own vehicles, or 3PL companies buy their own vehicles to run the show. Uh, the the then the 3PL companies they hire the delivery partners, and the delivery partners deliver to the consumer. Now, a lot of people assume that the logistics company they buy vehicles and then they hire people on salary, and they that is how it operates. But mostly, what we have seen is the 3PL companies just pays the salary of the delivery partner. Many a times, the salary of the delivery partner is based on a per order basis, not even a fixed salary. So if they are not do not turn up on a day and they don't do any deliveries, they don't get paid, right? And also, the company doesn't provide the vehicle. The delivery partner has to come with their own vehicle, and they get either fixed salary monthly or they get fixed amount per delivery. We have not seen a variable pay based on the distance or different allowance for a motorcycle, a different allowance for petrol, or a different allowance as a salary. It's all combined into one. So it is the best interest of the delivery partner to reduce their own cost, because let's say they are doing 20 deliveries in a day and they're working 30 days a month, to 600 deliveries. They are going to get the pay the same thing what they've talked of. Obviously, there'll be incentives. Again, it will be based on how many deliveries they have done, not based on the distance that they do. And this is the case with all Swiggy and Zomato. I myself wrote for Swiggy for 2 weeks just to understand the entire ecosystem. And the cost and what the delivery partner gets paid is not based on the cost of the order. It is based slightly on the kilometers, but then it's a block of kilometers. Between 1 to 6 kilometers, you get the same amount. Uh, right. So it is in the best interest of the delivery partner to reduce their costs. That is one way to increase their income. After COVID, what we have seen is we have seen a lot of firing in the management of the Swiggy and Zomato both. What we have also seen is the number of orders going down for delivery partners, and since their earnings are extremely variable and dependent only on the deliveries that they do, their per delivery fee has also been reduced. Uh, so therefore, they have even in a deeper pressure to reduce their own costs. Then the consumer. Over here, the consumer is the main center point, but still, consumer doesn't care so far that how the deliveries are being made, right? They care for timely delivery. However, what we have seen is consumer is getting more aware, especially after the lockdown when they have seen the clean air. They have started understanding the effect of pollution on their lives. And if you talk to, I'm sure at least everyone has at least one friend in their friends group who talk about how wasteful the packaging of company like Amazon is, and everybody is talking about eco-friendly packaging for e-commerce. Similarly, consumers have started to ask for a more cleaner and greener last mile delivery. So I believe any company which does deliveries using electric vehicles, they can project themselves as a green company, and that will actually act as a very good branding exercise with the consumer. Now let's get a little deeper into what the options we have. The When you talk about electric scooters, uh, they are primarily categorized into two: low speed and high speed. Low speed do not require a license to ride, but that is why their maximum speed is limited to 25 kmph. The maximum power or the wattage of the motor is 250 watts, and they'll be great for hyperlocal deliveries. Uh, like because of the limited top speed, you can go 15 kilometers. The ranges are typically between 65 to 70 kilometers, and you can put a bigger battery and do more kilometers. But just because of the restricted top speed, it will just take you more time to do a single longer trip. That is where the high speed vehicles come in. Because of their bigger size and because of they're more expensive, they also come in sometimes dual battery setups with ranges which can total range single charge range be more than 100 kilometers. The top speed can be greater than 25 kmph, but what we have seen is the practical solutions. Their top speeds are generally between 40 to 45 kilometers per hour. Any more than that, it will put a lot of strain on the battery and it will reduce the range. So if you want a very fast electric scooter with a top speed of 80 kilometers per hour, and you still want a long range, the cost of battery, everything would be so high that will become unfeasible for this business. So typically, a top speed of 42 kilometers per hour with a dual battery setup generally works in this case. And over here, because of increased top speed, you can they can be used for intracity deliveries. Companies like courier companies can use it. Companies like e-commerce companies like Flipkart and others can use it. The hyperlocal deliveries again, Swiggy, Zomato can use both, but how we target the low speed scooter is towards cyclists. They're 20% of the delivery person, now whether they work for Big Basket or Grocers or especially with Swiggy and Zomato, 20% of their workforce is actually on cycles. Most of them they don't have a license, so we can easily ask them to switch to an electric scooter, and it will increase their pay, which will justify the extra cost of scooter because they'll be able to do more deliveries per day. Then we come to the three-wheeler category. Now, we're talking about electric three-wheeler cargo. they can be categorized into L3 and the L5 category. Now, L3 category, you can say it is equivalent to the low speed scooter. Their maximum speed is limited to 25 kmph. The motor power cannot be more than 2000 watts. The maximum weight, excluding the weight of the driver, can be 310 kgs, the laden weight along with the cargo. The L5 category, the top speeds can be more than 25 kmph, motor power can be greater than 250 watts. And the gross weight is limited to 1.5 tons, excluding the weight of the traction batteries. So over here, if you want to increase the payload capacity, uh, then you can do that by building a bigger frame, etc. That and you want a longer range, you can add more batteries. You can add a bigger battery, but the weight of the battery will not be included in the gross weight of the vehicle. So you can put actually bigger batteries without having to worry about it not qualifying for L5 category. So that is one advantage of not, that they don't include the weight of the traction batteries in it. Now, there are a few options which are coming up. There's an article on EV Reporter which Priyanshi can probably send out a link to, which categorizes a few products available in this category. L3 category, I believe, would be good for the last mile, absolute last mile to the consumer, in smaller areas and smaller catchment areas and bigger societies. But L5 categories where we see much bigger demand. Now, let's talk about the total cost of ownership. If we talk about a petrol vehicle versus electric scooter, the cost of petrol motorcycle has gone up, especially after BS6. So a person would have to give 20,000 rupees down payment, and they'll have to pay an EMI of about typically about 2,500 rupees. This is a 2 year tenure. So again, the fuel costs are huge, right? The petrol prices, everybody is complaining about it, and unfortunately, no one can do anything about it. The fuel costs are again huge. It is more than the EMI itself, and then the maintenance and the insurance. So the total cost of ownership of a petrol motorcycle is about 2 lakh rupees over a 2 year period. Typically if they're doing 100 kilometers in a day and doing 26 days of duty. In an electric scooter, if they do the same 100 kilometers, we have a lease plan where we are charging 4,500. Again, this is for high speed scooter with a 100 kilometer range. And fuel cost is again electricity. We have included that, and it costs about 1,15,000 rupees in 2 years. So monthly saving for a rider who makes about typically between 15,000 to 20,000 rupees is 3,500 rupees. So even if you take their typical income to be 20,000 rupees, which is actually on the higher side, they still save more than about almost 20% of the income they are saving every month just by switching to electric. So it makes a very strong case for the individuals to go electric. Now, typically, we get asked the question that most of these riders they come with a used motorcycle, they'll buy it out from their friend. Uh, we have done those calculations as well. Now, when you buy a used a petrol motorcycle, I've taken a typical price of 36,000 rupees because below that you'll have to put a lot of money to fix it. So typically, 36,000 rupees will cost you a functional one. The monthly fuel cost will go up because the average will not be as good because it's older, and the maintenance cost will also go up, right? So again, we have reduced the insurance yearly, so very real calculations. Still, if you see the total cost of ownership, the total cost of ownership electric scooter is still the same, and still they'll save about 2,750 rupees a month, even if they go for a used motorcycle. Compared to a used motorcycle, so these 36,000 rupee loan. If they might have to take it as a loan from, let's say, a loan shark, local loan sharks who charge a lot of interest. So that is another issue which will be there in this. Now, what does a rider expect from the delivery vehicle? This is actually a photo which was posted, sent to me by Hero Electric, just to show how robust their vehicles are. And you can see that they will load. the people will overload the vehicles, especially in grocery deliveries and things like that. But at the same time, they have to be comfortable. Now imagine doing 80 kilometers, 100 kilometers on a two-wheeler in Indian city conditions, right? So they need to have a good suspension. They need to have a comfortable seat. They need to be big enough to accommodate your legs and things like that, right? So they have to be convinced. They have to be comfortable. The other part is it is also a status symbol. If you ask anyone, do this experiment. Everybody actually wants to own a vehicle, because it's also a status symbol. People put up a lot of accessories on their vehicles because it's a status symbol. Uh, Typically, we have seen a lot of companies selling vehicles like this, uh, for delivery purposes. But to be frank, I've not seen these being in use. Having worked as a Swiggy delivery partner myself and our customers working for Swiggy and Zomato and us interacting with them, we have found out that these will not work. I've myself ridden a vehicle like this. They are not comfortable, right? If I have to do just 80 kilometers on this, probably my back will last, a week max, right? So typically, given potholed roads, these are not very comfortable. These will work only when logistics company buys these vehicles, hires people on a site, and gives it to them to do the deliveries. Right? People would kind of be forced to use this because they don't have any option. But other than that, we don't see people actually paying individuals, the delivery partners, paying for this vehicle. Uh, as far as logistics company buying them is concerned, there are very few logistics company who actually want to own vehicles. They don't have that kind of a capital. This is where the now the leasing model comes in. So far, I think it's clear that the vehicles are typically owned by the individual who does the delivery partner, and that is why the leasing model is a win for all. And let me tell you why. See, now the manufacturers we believe are experts in manufacturing. They should work on the battery technology. They should work on the motors. And manufacturers are now being forced to, indigenize everything because they aim to, because of restrictions in trade with China. So I believe that manufacturers should focus on building the best motor, building the best battery, and marketing again becomes difficult because of everything. Then, but what happens by partnering to a company like Earthride is they get new sales, and we put in that effort, right? When we go and sell a scooter, we supply 20 units to Pathfind. We go to our PV manufacturer partner and just buy it from them, right? So they get sales with minimal effort. We, the leasing company, does all the selling for them. Obviously, it increase their market share. We get a lot of calls just because people seen our vehicles on road, and they just stop the people and ask, "आपने कहाँ से लिया है? Where have you got it from?" And we get a call, right? So the network effect is huge in this, right? Because these things sell a lot by word of mouth. Then the leasing company, I put my name outside over here. We come in now. We are in touch with the customer, the B2B company, right, and the individual delivery partners and the manufacturer, right? So we are sort of the center of the entire ecosystem right now. And we know the pain points of the delivery partner. We know the pain points or the price point that the logistics company is looking for if they are taking the vehicle themselves. What are their needs, etc. So we can tie in all those together, and we can work with the manufacturer to build the right solution and take it to the end consumer, right? The advantage that we get through our manufacturer partners is that we get India-wide presence through their network of dealers. The advantage of for the lessee, the delivery partner, is they come from a village. They can join a 3PL company and take on the lease. All they need is a 1 month advance lease amount, and they can start making money from day one. And they can pay as they are earning, right? So once they start earning, they can pay their next lease amount, everything, right? They don't have to worry about losing that lease amount because they're going to own the vehicle at the end of it. And a lot of people ask that, what happens to the battery after it's dead? So they're not really dead. They still have 80% capacity left. If they might not work in an electric vehicle, so they can be used for storage purposes, right? So we have not still come to the end of life cycle of the lithium cycle because they are very new still in India. So when we come to end of it, they can be used for storage, right? So we kind of have a complete end-to-end closed ecosystem from the manufacture to the reuse of the batteries, the biggest component of it. Just a brief about me. Earthride is my second startup. My first startup was in healthcare, which was acquired. I did my MBA from Babson College in Boston. And I'm an electrical engineer from Delhi College of Engineering. That is why I have a regional interest in electric vehicles and about 16 years of experience in startups and consulting. And obviously, I have worked very closely in the past year or so with delivery companies. So I have gotten a very good idea about the operations and the limitations and their needs. So thank you guys. Thanks a lot for listening. You all have been great listeners. So I'll just now, you know, pause this. I'll stop the share. I'll go to the question and answers now. So, question asked by Sunita Anup. With the promise of battery cost reduction, what is the prospect of lease model of EV where battery could be disengaged from the vehicle? So, Sunita, I think over here, a lot of companies they are saying that you buy battery from us on a lease basis, and the cost of battery is obviously reducing. But again, over here, the manufacturer of the electric scooter and the battery suppliers they have to work together. Typically, the electric scooter vehicles that we are buying from Hero Electric right now. They come with their own batteries, right? Now, now for a very large company, let's say I'm buying 100, and if I can convince Hero Electric not to put their batteries and bring in my own battery from another manufacturer because it's cheaper to me to lease, then definitely it will work, but we'll have to get a buy-in from the manufacturer of the electric vehicles as well. But I think the battery lease model would be essential for when the swapping comes into play. When swapping comes into play, you charge per swap, and people don't want to own the battery because they don't know what battery they'll end up at the end of life cycle. Right? So after so many swaps, so in that case, but I think it's still a little bit of time. Just to answer the question, I think it's we're still about at least a year away from this kind of a model. Doesn't low speed in such application affect delivery time? To be frank, no, not really. The low speed, what we are targeting right now is towards cyclists. It is definitely faster than a cycle. Now, talking about low speed vehicle replacing the petrol two wheeler, we are not suggesting that. But even if we do that, it will not really affect the delivery time a lot because if you look at the total delivery time, there's a lot of time where the person collects the order, starts the vehicle, goes, and then is stuck in the traffic, and then they stop and they have to climb a building to do the delivery, etc. Right? So there's a lot of time where you're not on the vehicle. So the top speed is not so important. But again, low speed is best application as a replacement for cycles. And a high speed vehicle as a replacement of petrol two wheelers, and a high speed scooter as a replacement of petrol two wheeler, which can go up to actually 80-90 kilometers per hour. I myself I personally feel I'm a rider. I have a Pulsar 220. I did as many deliveries on electric scooter as I did on my Pulsar 220. Right, so it's a myth that you need a very high speed motorcycle to do quick deliveries. Uh, the next question is by Krishna. Are you providing three-wheel L5 vehicles? We are working on it. We are talking to two or three manufacturers, uh, and the prototypes are a little bit delayed because of approvals got delayed. So once those manufacturers have those approvals, I believe they'll have it around mid of September or so. Then we'll try the trials, and if they work, we definitely would be looking at L5 vehicles as well. but there's still about 2 months before we can come out with the pricing model for that. So Krishna, yes, October, please connect with us. I'll again share my contact details. How did you calculate the exit cost of 312 per month? So that's a lithium ion, and total kilometers traveled were to 2600 kilometers. And I've used a typical 15 paisa per kilometer of cost, right? So that is we have come to 10 and 12 rupees per month. Uh, so and normally most of the vehicles are actually 10 paisa. We still use 15 paisa per kilometer for 2600 kilometers. Yeah, what are you guys' thoughts of scenarios with the vehicle or the battery gets stolen? Because the battery theft is very common. So this is definitely a challenge. If the battery gets stolen, so normally the few vehicles that we have is they have a removable battery. When the removable battery is there, we generally provide it to people who cannot charge it on site because they don't have a parking space. So they anyways carry the battery to their home at night, right, to charge. So there's no battery inside the scooter to steal. The other ones that we have, you cannot steal the battery unless you have the right tools, right? It'll take you at least 10 minutes. I try to do that myself, just opening the plastic casing and all that. It'll take you at least 15 minutes just to open all the bolts using the right tools. So the battery, in most cases where it's not removable, it is concealed in such a way that it cannot easily be stolen. Also, the battery stealing will happen when they can actually go and sell it. You know, so uh, the car batteries are lead acid batteries in cars. Conventional cars get stolen because they can easily get sold. But lithium ion batteries, stolen ones, they'll find it very difficult to sell. Will developing another question by anonymous attendee, will developing a standard battery pack across segments lead to better battery swapping? And yes, definitely. This is something that a lot of manufacturers are discussing. Past webinars that I've attended, past seminars that I've attended, everybody is talking about just making the casing standardized, the connector standardized, and the ampere are in the voltage standardized, right? Right now, there's a variant. Somebody is making 48 volts, somebody is making 72 volts. But once we have those things, sort of standardized, I'll not say that there'll be just one standard. There might be two or three standards. But manufacturers will definitely work towards it. And that will definitely help in swapping. Another question by Mohan Raj Nagraj: does Earthrider provide dealership? So again, we are not manufacturers. We are buying it from other manufacturers. So we worked with the local dealership of that manufacturer. But we can definitely partner with others to if they can take our leasing model to the new cities, right? So we can make it. We can work together with the manufacturer, and our partners can do the sales, etc., for us and get the customers. And so we do have a franchising model. So again, I'll share the contact details. Uh, is no, we are not manufacturers. We are not manufacturers. We are just buying from right now from Zero Electric. Question by Ananda. Using buyback. Yes. So the electric three wheelers, as far as cargo is concerned, we have not seen we have not seen them yet in the market, but the manufacturers who are looking at it are looking at buyback. But I'll just give you another example. Mahindra Electric and Lithium Urban Technologies. They had a press conference, and I was there. Now, Lithium Urban Technologies, which provide electric cars for office commutes, they've already done about 2 lakh kilometers on a single battery pack of Mahindra car. Mahindra wants to buy back that car, but actually lithium, and you can actually check it with Mahindra, and they're not saying why should we sell it back to, because it's working fine for us, right? So Mahindra wants to buy it back to study the battery. So they are definitely looking at buyback, But the thing is, nobody knows if the batteries are run properly, how long they will last. We have seen that Tesla is not talking about million-mile batteries, because even in the existing Tesla cars, even with the older technology of the cells, they have run more kilometers than they expected them to, right? So they will come back with a buyback policy, but how successful will that be? Nobody knows. As the L1 space, what is your opinion on e-cycles vis-a-vis delivery fleet? The manufacturer of e-cycle space, how can they target the market? So Aditya, the e-cycle space is quite interesting. I definitely feel that they can definitely work. We did an experiment with Zomato. We gave them electric cycle, high-speed electric scooter, and a low-speed electric scooter, and they analyzed data on it. So when they looked at the total cost of ownership, obviously the lease amount is sorry for all three. Uh, Based on that number and based on how much they were earning, cycles came out on top, not because of distance, etc., but because the rider says that when the colony, and this is very interesting, right? When the colony get close, they can actually use the cycle. They can actually pick up the cycle, jump the gate, and ride inside the colony or the residential complex, uh, and not have to leave their vehicle outside, right? So that's a very typical example. I don't know how many space places that would be valid, but e-cycles should definitely have a space. But I personally believe that the difference between the cost of an e-cycle and that of electric low-speed scooter is not huge, right? So when you work out the entire cost economics of it, uh, for a lot of cases, you can actually move to a low-speed electric scooter, because then they can use it for their family, etc. as well, right? So, and as far as the delivery of fleet is concerned, we have not seen anybody using a very extensive fleet of electric cycles. I know companies who try to do that, but those experiments I have not seen big fruits out of. So electric cycles are very interesting case study, and it's hard to say like how effective they are compared to a low speed electric scooter. Uh, will cost of ownership better? How will the down payment? So we are not Keshav Sen. So Mr. Keshav, we are not taking at Earthright. We are not taking any down payment. We are just taking the first month's lease amount in advance, right? So this is because we want people to start working, and we can obviously have a down payment over there, but just for the ease of calculation, we have shown that. Again, it depends upon the leasing company how they want to plan it, right? This is our model where we don't take any down payment. So now, Mr. Reddy, what if rider misuse the vehicle, doesn't pay remaining lease? So yes, this is a question which comes up a lot. So we secure our vehicles using a GPS. If they don't pay, normally what we have seen so far is they don't pay because they don't have any earnings. Obviously, during the lockdown, they couldn't work, so they didn't have any earnings. But as soon as they started having earnings, we have seen that they're paying 1,000 rupees a week or so. They're like, "Sir, हम pay कर देंगे," right? So another example for this would be that easily comparable to it is petrol motorcycles, right? It's a huge market. They give out huge, the number of loans given out for petrol motorcycles is huge. The NPAs in two-wheeler loans is just 2.7%, right? I've talked to somebody who was into recovery of loans for TVS Finance, and TVS Finance mostly finances their own motorcycles. He said that the recovery fund, they had to make one phone call in 2 months in entire eastern UP. Normally, what happens is when you call them, either they have forgotten to make that payment or they really don't have money. But if you remind them that their payment is due, they generally pay. So you do have to do a follow up. Automatic payment doesn't come, so that is a little bit of an operational issue. But generally, they do pay. But if they don't, we can obviously disable using the GPS and then retrieve the vehicle. So if So again, a question by Mohan Raj. If a fleet operator like Swiggy does total cost of operation includes charging equipment. So the vehicles that we have bought, they come with a charger. We will be looking at developing, those standy charging pin, charging stations. They would definitely be needed for electric three wheelers, cargo. But when the three wheeler cargo comes in, those charging stations will be put up in the warehouse or one of those privately owned spaces. But the operator, to answer the question, the operator will pay you, for the delivery. They don't care whether you have to put five charging stations or 10, or you use diesel or electric. If they say they have to go for electric, they'll just pay you for doing their deliveries. They will not say, okay, this much extra for charging station, this much extra for charging, this much extra for battery, this much extra for vehicle. You have to give them one price, all inclusive. So, hi Mukund. Mukund, our partnership with Hero Electric is there. You might see that, Pathkind and Hero Electric have released a press release recently. Actually, that supply is done by us. We bought from Hero Electric and we leased it, rented it to Pathkind Diagnostics. So we are working very closely with Hero Electric. We are looking for more partners. Our conditions are that the company should have India-wide presence. We are not looking at local manufacturers. We are looking at companies which have wider presence, and we are looking at companies which are reliable, both just not in terms of service quality, but also in the product quality, right? So we are open to collaboration with more EV manufacturers as long as they suffice these conditions. So Anshul, how do we maintain the maintenance of these vehicles? So again, it depends. So for the individuals, we don't have a hub system since it's a ownership based lease. The lessee, they take the vehicle to their own house. They park it there. They put chains on it themselves. They actually do puja of the vehicle. We have seen that because they treat it as their own. And as for the maintenance, we give them the details. Again, it depends upon the lease amount. We can include it in the per month. And what we'll do is we'll ask them to go to the local dealership, get it fixed, and we'll pay the dealership if there's any service cost. Obviously, what is not included are damages and other things. But as far as basic service is concerned, it's not very costly. There's nothing to service other than just brake pads, checking the tires, checking the battery, checking the controller. Other than that, there's not just cleaning. So those costs we can include actually in the vehicle, in the cost, and it can be done at the local dealership. And we can do the payment online to the dealership anywhere in India. So I think that takes care of all the questions so far. So now what I'll do is I'll share the screen again.
Dhairya, there's a couple of questions in the chat window also. Can I read those out to you?
Yeah, sure, please.
So there is one from Ravi from Energize, and his question is, what are your pain points that you face with respect to the battery?
Frankly, battery we have not faced any issue. In one of our vehicles, actually the one which I was using for my own purpose and which we give for demo, there was a problem, but it is being replaced. But so far, we don't see any problems with battery. Just that we have to give the right training to the people to charge it properly. Make sure that they are, parked safely and they are not getting wet. As long as those basic things are being taken care of, we don't see any problems coming from the battery side. But anyway, when the battery problem does happen, I think if you're talking about range, the range running out, it is something which the rider has to manage on their own. Generally, we have seen that they need a little bit of training. When we supplied to our customer Pathkind, they were used to riding petrol bikes, and when I reached there, and again, I'm talking right from my own experience, what I've seen from my own eyes. We were there to give the training, and this guy came in riding our scooter, and he took a very sharp left turn, and he was on full throttle, inside the campus in their building campus, right? So I was like, boss, अगर आप ऐसे चलाओगे तो range नहीं आएगी. Like if you ride like this, you will not get the range. It's not a petrol vehicle, right? So a little bit of training is required for sure. But as long as you give them the training, it gives the promised range, and people do take care of how much distance they have to go. They know how much distance they have to go, so they will not take the vehicle. They charge the vehicle properly before they take it for a long. So normally the range problems does happen in the beginning if the training is not there.
Okay, sure. And there's one more question. This is from Jeanit Mehta.
Yeah.
He says that compared to a Tata Ace used by Big Basket and Grofers, which have delivery person and a driver, for an electric cargo vehicle, there is only one driver seat. How the problem can be solved so that Tata Ace can be replaced by an electric fleet?
So Jeanit, actually, I don't think so. They will replace the Big Basket and Grofers. They are probably working with Tata Ace. We know that. I talked to Big Basket. So first of all, they are looking for these. Typically, they are looking for a one-ton vehicle because when the vehicle is one ton, they will load it more than that. And right now, there are no. I do not know of anyone who's developing a production level. Prototypes might be built, but nobody is looking at production of a one-ton load capacity vehicle in electric cargo. So the maximum capacity that we've seen is 550 kgs. And and as far as let's say if the electric cargo vehicle is coming with just one seat, adding another seat is not an issue actually, if that is the need, right? All you have to do is bolt on one more seat. So I don't think so that would be such a big issue. All it will do is it will add the weight of the rider. Anyways, you are carrying 550 kg, 600 kgs, one ton. So adding another rider for who typically would weigh about 80 kgs is not a big problem, right? And adding another seat is not an issue. I know the cabins are being designed typically for single seat, but if would be a need for two seats, I think manufacturers will easily work around that. So that shouldn't be an issue.
Okay. So I think we are almost out of time now. There are still a couple of questions. So
right.
there are a couple
Yeah,
of
just let me know.
Chat window, yes. If you can just take them, just last couple of questions. Yeah. There's one by Manish Jain.
Right.
His question is, what do you think? Is kick scooters a very ambitious approach when it comes to urban mobility?
No, I don't see kick scooters working in Indian conditions. Typically, like if you're from Delhi area, or in Bombay, if you are in BKC, or if you're near Delhi area, Delhi NCR, like the cyber city area, where it's all paved and it's properly made design, cyber hub, it will work for fun over there. But we don't see kick scooters being used for even small commutes. Primarily because we don't have payments. I was in US. I went back in 2018. There, obviously, kick scooters were being used. Bird is huge over there. But again, the pavements over there are wide. They're well maintained. So I don't see kick scooters as a huge business in India. They can definitely sell in campuses, closed campuses, maybe university campuses. But then again, since the cost of a kick scooter would anywhere between 20,000 to 25,000 rupees, people would go actually for a 50,000 rupee low speed electric scooter. Right? That's what I feel. As a toy, I think they can work, but not as a mass. I don't see a huge volume coming from there as a business is concerned.
Okay. And there is one question from Anshul. He says, do you have charging stations at your hub?
No, we don't have a hub yet. We don't have a hub. That is why because the problem with the hub is the cost of operations go up, and it is self-aligned till now. So that is why we have the ownership-based lease, because it also allows us not needing a hub. But we are working on charging stations, and these charging stations will be put up on an app where you can go and charge. But then again, these charging stations will be nothing but just 5 ampere sockets, because then we'll have to work on different scale, we've actually put charging stations where the person doesn't have to carry the charger, right? So we are still working on that, but still it's 3 to 4 months away before we can come with a prototype for the charging station.
Okay, and I think this will be the last question. This is again from Ravi B. And his question is, what is the warranty or degradation parameters?
Degradation parameters, we have not, to be frank, analyzed, but the warranty that we are getting is the manufacturer warranty, which for high speed is actually 3 years on the battery, and on low speed also on the battery is 3 years. So if you guys have any questions, you can email me and just drop me a WhatsApp message on my phone, and if you have any questions, feel free to do that, please.
Sure. Thank you, Dhairya, and
All right.
everybody.
Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Have a good rest of the day. Bye.